and welcome to the Pragmatic Product Chat series, where we tackle the biggest challenges facing today's product management, product marketing, and other market and data-driven professionals with some of the best minds in the industry. I'm Rebecca Calageris for Pragmatic Institute and your host for this episode. Today, we are welcoming Kevin Dean, founder and CEO of ManoByte. Since 2007, Kevin has been at the forefront of AI-driven business transformation, leveraging artificial intelligence to sort of revolutionize business processes, which means he has approximately 15 years more experience with AI than most of us. And so an incredibly valuable perspective on how to take advantage of what is available today, as well as sort of how to prepare for the next wave of innovation. So welcome, Kevin. We are very excited to have you on the show.
Yeah, I am so glad to be on this show to talk to you and your audience. I'm looking forward to having a really nice conversation today.
Yes. I always like to start with everyone's origin story, right? Like, how did you get where you are today? And why are you why is AI such a passion of yours and such a superpower?
Yeah. So I actually went to school. So I have a degree in computer information science. So I'm a nerd by trade. And when I was in school, we learned a lot about data and AI. Interestingly enough, that was many years ago. But there really wasn't what we have today, right? A lot of it was theory, a lot of theoretical stuff. And so, I went on to work for a couple of Fortune 500 companies. But then one day while I was diving in Hawaii, I decided to start my own organization, start my own company. That's when I started ManoByte. And with the idea of starting with data and information to be able to help with social media, it transformed from there. And, now here we are almost 15 years later. We've been, really diving into how AI can help businesses. It's funny because I found an interesting blog post that was written about 10 years ago about natural language processing and how it can be leveraged in order to analyze and understand sentiment and to help businesses make better decisions. And man, that article was so relevant and at the same time so far off from where we are today, which is interesting.
That is interesting. And I think it's interesting, and just for level setting on the conversation too, we today, us laymen, not you, when someone says AI, we think Gen AI, we think ChatGPT, and it has definitely democratized access to it. There's lots of things, but it is sort of the tip of the iceberg, right? In terms of artificial intelligence and how we can leverage it. So I think it's important as we have this conversation to think, yes, there are things we can do with these tools which have made it more accessible, but there is the engines, the power, the technology behind it, right? The models that can also really transform pieces. So I think it's gonna be good. And for those of you who are only listening and not watching, you're totally missing out because Kevin is a big shark guy. So there is a shark jaw behind him. There is a painting, not a real life picture of a man being attacked by a shark. And clearly this is a big passion and it's pretty cool. So hopefully.
And it is, I love the water as much as I love AI.
That is awesome, right? So I picture you in Hawaii surviving a shark attack and being like, I'm starting my own company. That's
exactly how it happened.
Which is a pretty powerful origin story. I mean, you're either going to be a hero or a villain with that kind of story. So it works, right?
We haven't decided which one yet.
Yeah. Artificial intelligence for good and evil. Okay. So when we're talking about places that you've seen, I know you've both as the Fortune 500 companies you've worked at and then the companies you've worked with. Talk a little bit about some of the areas where you've really seen the impact of artificial intelligence, right? What areas of the company? You talk a lot about sort of operationals and efficiencies and improvements there. So let's dig into the areas that you really see it and how that really has brought an impact.
Yeah. So we'll start with kind of some of the foundational or fundamental areas where we see a lot of impact. And that is really at helping companies understand in real time what's happening in their world from a metric, analytics, and a data standpoint, and to really make good business decisions and to understand what the data and the information is telling them. So for a very long time, we've been using AI to help businesses better understand data. And so there's this kind of touch between business intelligence, BI, and AI. I think they're like sisters, brothers, they're tied together. And so using AI to get good information and to make it actionable is where we're seeing a ton of impact. We've been seeing it for a while, but I think now what's been exciting over the past 18 months is how it can really help us to make better business decisions and to help sort out and get information and good decisions quicker. So I think that's one area where we're seeing major impact.
Well,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's super interesting. I talked about this before here, but in my career, when I started out in marketing many moons ago, it was really frustrating because we didn't have enough data. We didn't know what was happening. We didn't know what was having an impact. So you're just like, I think this one might work. And now we almost have the opposite problem. There is a ton of data, but finding the information in it, finding the actionable stuff in there is hard because it's so overwhelming. There's too many sources. And I think to your point, this is exactly where this is true with everybody now. Most of our listeners are working on software. They're software as a service. They have an enormous amount of user information. But how do I turn that into usable, actionable knowledge?
Yeah. And that's the thing that AI is doing for us now. It's taking all of that data that's been bottled up in reports and dashboards, all of these things that people look at, but still don't know what to do, right? So we've had tons of customers over the years where they want a nice, pretty dashboard and all.
It's always the dream.
Right. And you build all this stuff for them, but it never moves the needle, right? Because it doesn't tell them what does this mean or what action should I take? But now we're able to provide meaningful insight with the way AI is able to quickly help us to decipher and put in the parameters of here's what I'm looking for, and here's what I need for you to help me find, and here's what I want you to help me understand. So AI can help you do that quickly today, right? So
is it because of our ability to ask questions more naturally that it's really, okay.
So not only because of the ability to ask questions more naturally, but also the ability to be able to better ingest multiple forms of data and look for the intersections without having to have a data scientist try to
super valid.
by one map those intersections, right?
That's true, because that cleanup is the majority of a data science, not majority, but it's an enormous amount of time spent by the data sciences and sort of that data wrangling, right? Cleaning it up, making it consistent across the way. So it's a really valid point that if I didn't have to do that, when I could just feed in the very source and the magic guy in the back, not how that works, but right, then they can map those together. That is another absolutely huge, because oh gosh, I didn't even think about it that way. It makes a ton of sense. We have so many acquisitions, right? And so many acquisitions means everyone's on disparate systems.
Yep.
And so knowing what different parts of the company are doing, they're just not even measuring the things the same, right? So again, being able to feed it in.
Not only are they not measuring the same things, but they talk about them in different ways, right? They got a different vernacular, right? It's all about semantics, right? And so AI is really good at figuring out those semantics and pulling it all together.
How do you, we're going to go a little weeds for a minute here, but as we ask the AI to do those semantics and bring them together, there's obviously a checks and balance to make sure it has not made the wrong conclusion. So is your team like leveraging it to make the first pass and then kind of going through and being like, okay, here's where the issue is? Or how do we ensure that the assumptions it makes?
Yeah, so this is a tuning discussion, right? And so when we think about tuning and how we're using the models appropriately, this really starts not at the end, but it starts at the beginning.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
And so you have to, you don't just throw it into quote unquote ChatGPT, right?
That's not magic? Okay. All right. No, that's not going to do it.
That way. And there are other tools, right, out there other than these open models. But what you're looking for is you're helping your model to understand how to go and look at this information, right? And you're helping it to say, here are the steps that I need for you to take. And this is the methodology that I need for you to follow. And you train it up front to know what to look for. And you're going to get much better results at the end. And of course, there's going to be times where you need to go through and make some tweaks after, because you just don't take the output and look for it. But it's going to be minimal. And then when you do get the results that are out of parameters, you just go back and figure out, like, why is it out of parameter? Why is it out of parameters? And go back and train it to look for those parameters so that it doesn't make those mistakes again, right?
Yeah. That's a super valid point, that you don't wait and fix it at the end. You've got to train it from the beginning.
That's right.
And again, we're not talking about like, don't go load all your data into ChatGPT. This is not the lesson we are taking away here. Right. But it's interesting. Like, so, I mean, immediately I can see, from a sales and marketing perspective, from a customer service perspective, right? That there's a lot of ways. What are some of your favorite success stories that you guys have helped clients with?
Yeah. So one of the things that I want to talk about is, okay, we're talking about data and metrics, but I really want to talk about the power, because on the customer service, customer success side, there's some major wins that are happening with, I even hate saying this word because it's been a bad word for so long, but chatbots really have matured and come of age. From the standpoint that now, using Gen AI, we can truly solve customers' problems and to help them in a way that we couldn't before, by getting them answers quicker, in a more intelligent way, and offloading from customer service and customer support, which is really bad for most organizations. So we've had some great wins on the customer success side. We leverage a tool called Maven AGI. It's a great platform. And Maven AGI gives us the ability to be able to reduce support tickets that go into customer support by 90%.
Wow.
Because being able to address those tickets through the chatbot. Travelocity is one of those customers. HubSpot. So customers that have leveraged the platform to really reduce a ton of impact.
Well, it is, to your point, so different than the chatbots in the past. Just felt like they were the gatekeeper, right? Like that's all it was. It wasn't really helpful. It was just like, are you sure you want to come here? Are you sure? Have you tried this link with 10,000 pages that you can maybe go through? And you're like, please don't make me do that.
No.
Versus finding me the answer, so I am satisfied and I don't need to go further. It's a big switch in how these have started to behave, and you can tell the places that do it well or not.
Huge shift.
Yeah.
There's a huge shift in what they can do and how they can add value, and more companies need to start using them right away, right? Because what they can do is awesome. So I'll talk about with, like, for instance, Maven AGI. Not only does it, so let me just explain how it works, right? So you point it at your knowledge sources, whatever those knowledge sources may be. Your knowledge based on your website, your internal support tickets, your SharePoint, wherever knowledge exists within your organization, you point it there, and then you train it to be able to answer questions in the voice that your organization wants and that your organization needs. Okay, great. Once we've tuned it, we've taught it our voice, now we can expose it to our customers, and it will allow a natural language for someone to speak and say, hey, this is my problem, this is what I need. And instead of going through 18 different prompts, 18 different questions, it's going to come back with the answer that you need, exactly that you're looking for. And then the great thing that these tools allow us to do now is like, oh, let's say that I need a refund, right? This is literally something that happened to me yesterday. On the phone with a big telecommunication company. They will remain nameless. They messed up my order. I wanted a refund and I'm on the phone for 2 hours, right?
Oh,
And
gosh,
zero, oh, now you got to wait 12 days for your refund. Well, these tools, like maybe an AGI, now has the ability to say, oh, we can issue you a refund right away based on what information we have. But automatically, this is the cool stuff where I start to geek out. We're creating the connections to whatever services I have on the fly, right? So there is that technology that exists now to say, oh, you're using this system for your banking or this system for
connections.
platform. It automatically builds on the fly those APIs to be able to talk to each other and to complete those transactions. Right? That stuff is awesome, right?
Yeah.
For no more is to say, well, we have to wait because we have to get our developers to build a connection to your system. No, these programs can do that on their own.
That's amazing. And
awesome.
It also changes the use there. Right? In the one example where, okay, and now I've created a backlog, a bottleneck where I need somebody to go in and process these orders. And I've created tension on the customer side and tension internally versus like, nope, all the way to solution.
All the way to
and then to your point, like our development groups are fantastic, but they have a lot of other stuff to do, right? So if there are good, reliable tools that build these APIs, yes.
Yeah. And your developers don't want to build those APIs anyway. They want to build product with cool features, functionality, right? They don't want to build the APIs. They hate doing that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And why should they, right? The technology can do it itself.
Yes.
Everybody exposes their APIs and all it's doing is saying, oh, this is the call for this. This is the call for this. The only thing that I need is the authentication and then it's done.
Yeah.
Easy.
You don't get like a different award if you put the blood, sweat, and tears and did it manually. That's not how this works, right? So yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and I mean, I think that's a really good point too, because we do have limited resources for data projects, for development hours, and there is always a big push to focus those outward, right, to the new products and new services that are going to drive top line revenue. And some of those efficiency plays or the technical debt just gets shoveled along, right? And customer support, like we know because we all do. There's so many SaaS products that the retention and the net revenue retention rate is really important, but it is the sexy new stuff, right? And the new clients that come through. And so using these tools to improve that part of the organization makes double the sense.
Yeah. And so that really is the third, we kind of touched on it, the third value where Gen AI is helping. It's on the development, right? So the code generation, the code cleanup. We had a customer who they were telling us, hey, it was going to take them 3 years to redo their code for their core application, right? And so they had this long roadmap of just redoing it so that, and this was just the standard stuff, right? So that they could start working on the newer things for the future, right? And so we were able to help show them how to leverage Gen AI to refactor their code, right? And so they were able to get the refactoring of their code done that was going to take them 3 years or like 4 months.
Wow. When think of all that energy they can spend on innovation and being ahead of the market versus just trying to get the baseline, you just can't afford as fast as things move. You cannot tuck away for 3 years to get the base where you need to be. You will not exist.
But there are so many companies who are in that situation today, right? And they're saying, well, it's on our roadmap, but our roadmap is this long, right? And we can't refactor fast enough, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's another great use case, 100%. And the other thing I think about with AI is it always felt like back in the day, my second back in the day comment, but like only very large companies could afford to use AI. It was a major 7-digit plus investment. You needed the resources, you need the things. It was so specialized. It feels like that level of accessibility, not just with the ChatGPT, which we can all get for $20, but these other AI programs and things, the level of accessibility has changed immensely, right? So, yeah.
drastically changed, right? And so earlier this year, I was at the Forrester conference, right? So it was probably 3 months ago. And, they were saying that the average cost, for developing and rolling out large AI projects, even for the enterprise level, has come down to be, mid six figures instead of, like you were saying, in the seven figure range.
Yep.
And the time to roll out these larger projects, 3 months, right? And so that time frame has come down even for the enterprises. But for the smaller folks, they also can now get out there and literally within a month have a major impact by using tools that are very accessible, right? Very accessible, right? So it's a game changer, right?
Yeah.
It really is a game changer.
So one of the things I want to talk about, because there are a plethora of AI tools, many of which, as you talked about, are amazing, some of which are not. How would you recommend? Like, how do I figure out, like, if this is a good one and this is not?
Yeah. So, this is such a great question. And I think that what I feel right now is that we're in this age that feels a little like I'm going to date myself, like the internet bubble.
Oh yeah. I was thinking the same thing. Oh, the .com boom. I got you.
Yeah. And so what we're seeing is that everybody and their dog has an AI app.
Yes, yes, they do.
Everybody and their dog has an AI app. And what you want to look for to help you is you want to go to for organizations who really want reputable sources. You need to go to organizations like Forrester, Gartner, and look at the types of organizations that they're recommending on their roadmaps, right? On their magic quadrants, right? I think you want to go out to places like G2 and look for, the types of apps that are getting good recommendations, right? I think you want to go to those reputable sources to find apps there. Because like on YouTube, I get emails about, these crazy little apps that are out there that are, they're not going to be around. They may have a cool feature, but you want to stay away from those for your enterprise. And then the other thing that I would recommend that you do is look in the ecosystem that you have your other business systems in. So a lot of companies will have a CRM. You're going to have an ERP. You're going to have your whatever systems you have. Most of those systems that most organizations are using, they're going to have a marketplace, an ecosystem where they're recommending AI apps and AI partners. Those are the ones that you want to look for, right? Because what we're recommending for companies to do is to leverage what's already out there where it makes sense with the systems that you already have. Mm-hmm. So if you're using Salesforce, Salesforce has a suite of AI tools in their ecosystem. If IBM has Watson in their set of tools, HubSpot has an ecosystem where they have a set of tools. NetSuite, they're starting to have some set of tools from the Oracle side, right? And so stick with the vendors that you know and trust for your business systems and start looking in their ecosystem to say, what are they recommending that others within the ecosystem having success from? I think that's never going to steer you wrong because, again, like we were talking earlier, one of the things that you're going to want from your AI tools are the ability to connect and pull insight and data from your knowledge stores, right? So if there's a tool that already connects to a knowledge store that you have, then that's going to be a good tool for you.
Yeah, it's going to jump ahead. Well, and let's keep going with that topic. So it's picking the right tools. And the other thing I think of is everyone listening right now is thinking of like 8,000 different ways that they could use AI in their company. But like there's a pilot stage, there's a setup, right? It's again, you want to implement and start to see value to bring everything and everyone on board. So when we're talking about like creating a successful AI pilot, what do you recommend? How do you identify even the right ones to start with?
Yeah. So I think this really goes down to you start with your company's mission and vision, right? And I know that this is going to sound a little like, oh, we always start with our company's mission.
No, we don't.
But gotta have strategic alignment.
Mm-hmm.
What is the biggest problem that you're trying to solve for as an organization, right? And then start your plan around that. You're going to need to do an assessment. You need to figure out, like, are we ready, right? What do we need to do to be ready? Is our data ready, right? Right. That's going to be a big part of your assessment. Is the leadership ready? Where are there gaps in our organization for adoption? Like that kind of assessment has to be done first, right? Then you've got to think about, at the executive level, how do we plan a roadmap, right? To say, here's what we're going to try to solve for, the use cases that will have the most impact within your organization, right? I think that's important. And then you need to understand and put together a plan that has, these are the things that I need to address from a security standpoint, from a compliance standpoint, right? All of those things you have to document and get together first before you start moving forward, right? Once you have like that identified and here's the key use cases that I want to go after because these are most impactful for my business, you then need to go and, think about how do we architect our solution, right? Are there business processes and workflows that we need for these tools to take, right? I think a lot about agentic AI where you've got multiple chat agents working together, right? What does that process look like, right? When is the handoff between chatbots occur, right? What non AI components have to happen because this isn't an all AI solution, right?
Right. Yeah. No, the connection points. That's
right. We gotta, like you said, we gotta have those connection points. And where is it that we're going to leverage AI? Where is it not? Where are the triggers? What are the outputs? All of those things you have to figure out as you're planning it. And then once you've got that plan, then you can begin designing it, right? And then figure out how you implement it and then scale.
Is that a process that you help your clients with?
That's the exact process that we help.
Right. Because you could see that, like, yes, you could do this, but if you want, if you want to be able to move both fast and assuredly, right? I can see why having some expertise, right? Yeah. A framework and expertise that comes in helps you move forward because that's the same thing we talked about with like retooling the code. Like I can't pause, right? And we can't pause everything else we're doing in the organization in order to fix it as much as we would like to, right? So how do you move those pieces together? Makes a lot of sense.
That's right. So when we think about our framework, it's really like 4 steps: plan, design, implement, and then scale, right? And that structured approach ensures that companies can have a seamless implementation of their AI solutions.
Yeah. And then you get to do a pilot, you get to see success, which builds confidence in the organization. And then you get to scale because that's part of any part of the organization where you're like, we're going to use AI to improve is going to have a moment of, oh, AI can't do what I do, right? Or AI, it's not going to, like, you can't help it as much as we embrace it, right? There is a moment of that. And so the pilot, again, is really important for buy-in, and a buy-in at the everyone is like, of course we will at this level, but the buy-in at the execution and the really understanding and seeing how it works, I think a pilot can be super powerful for that.
100%. And, as much as things change, things also stay the same, right? And with any technology, adoption is always the number one challenge. It's always the number one challenge. And I don't care what technology has ever been within an organization. It's always about change management and adoption.
Yep.
And those are things that are super critical. Even with Gen AI, as much as people are adopting it for different things, it's that change management and adoption that, you have to remind people, use the Copilot, right? Use the tool, right? You're going to have to always help them to see that follow the process, right? So change management, risk management, adoption are key components that people oftentimes overlook.
Mm-hmm. You talked about things are changing. I think there is a subset of people who are thinking about leveraging AI in a bigger way in the organization, but are just trying to find the right time, right? There's this thought that it's moving so quickly. If I go now, then what I pick is going to be outdated, or gosh, it's going to be even better and less expensive if I just wait 3 months. What would you say to these people?
Oh boy. That's a great question. And I think that my answer continues to change for this question. And I think that, again, it goes back to what are you trying to accomplish as a business strategically? Because if you want to be a leader in your space, then you cannot take a wait and see approach, right? But that's not everybody's business objective of core, right? It's not we're just nope, we're going to stay back and we're going to stay here. And that may work for a lot of businesses. It has for a long time. And the truth is, as much as I want to be excited and say that AI is going to change the world fast, and it is changing fast, we know that people are adopting it for lots of different things quickly. We're still in the hype cycle. We're still in the hype cycle. And where it's going to have an impact, we're still many years out.
Yeah.
And as much as I love it, and I can see how people who want to innovate and change are going to do it, it's still going to take time for people to adopt, and it's still going to take some time. And I just read a recent report that a lot of executives in larger companies are starting to pull back on their budgets for Gen AI just because there's so much uncertainty. There's so much governance, right? And so much risk, right? So innovators are going to innovate and they're going to move forward. But that's not every business's strategy. And so I think you have to, I said this earlier, you have to be in alignment with your business's overall goals and objective and where you're strategically going. And there are some companies, if you're a tech company that has a tech product, yes, you better have AI on your roadmap and rolling it out tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
If you're, I think about manufacturing companies. We work with a lot of manufacturing companies. Manufacturing companies are fast and slow to adopt AI. Because the truth is, manufacturing companies have been using AI for a long time, right? On the shop.
Yeah.
Right? Robotics and AI for a long, long time. But there's other areas, like in their sales processes, in their marketing process, where they're super slow to leverage it, right? And they could be, but they're not, right? And will their businesses be negatively impacted if they don't adopt it this year? Maybe not. But they will over time, right?
Right. I feel like it's like a slope, right? And we all know that, you look at the revenue curve, for your delayed launch product, you know how hard it is to make up the money you missed. And I would think it'd be the same thing. The advantage may not pay off now, but at some point it's separated so much that it's going to be far more difficult to overcome.
It will be. And I think that we're not at the tipping point yet for AI. And I think that we still have, I think we still have the early adopters, right? And so, but I think I think the cycle is not going to be as long as companies think, though, right?
Okay. Yeah.
It's not going to be as long as companies think, and I think there will be a point where some will be beyond the point of return.
Yeah. Yeah. So you, I think, have a really interesting seat, having been in AI deeply for as long as you have, to think about what comes next, and what do you see coming next, and how do you prepare for it?
Yeah. I get asked this question almost in every show that I'm on. And I want my answer to be different, but my answer is always the same, because this is the first time where I feel like I'm excited because I don't know what's going to
I love that.
next.
Yeah.
Right? It's like there are so many possibilities, right? There's so many possibilities. And every couple of weeks, I see something like, oh, that's new. I didn't think about that use case. I didn't think about employing it that way. I didn't think that someone would do that, right? Those things are happening all the time. That's cool. That's exciting. That's fun. But that means that, oh my goodness. In 5 years from now,
Yeah.
like everything is going to be so different. Everything's going to be so different, right? And that's what's cool about it, and that's what's exciting.
That is a great answer, right? Like, let's not pretend we've mapped it out. And I think because again, the access to it is democratized a little bit. There's so many people playing and thinking in the space that diversity of ideas really means that it's not like, well, we, the AI leaders of this, like there's not that one think tank. It's a fascinating time for sure.
It is fascinating. And I think that, we're going to look back, years from now and think, man, we thought this, we were doing this, and that was nothing, right? I think about, my first cell phone, right? The flip phone, right? Actually, I had like this BlackBerry. I don't know if you remember this BlackBerry.
Oh, I had a BlackBerry. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. Like the BlackBerries now compared to my iPhone.
Right.
The huge difference, right? And some of those things we never thought about. Right?
No, never would have thought. Oh, but I could also use it for, yeah.
Never would have thought. And that's where we are with AI.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, 4 or 5 years from now, we were going to look and wow, we would have never thought.
Yeah. It's a great analogy, right? Like, yes, for those of us who remember and like when I had my BlackBerry, I was like, this is the coolest thing, right? It was red and I could type on it. It was great. But yeah, I never would have thought all of the things that I can do with my phone now would just never have crossed my mind.
Well, never. And that's the way AI is going to be in the future, right?
Yeah. All right, Kevin, we talked about lots of different things today. If you were going to have our listeners do 2 things differently tomorrow, based on what we talked about today, what would that be?
Yeah. So the first thing that I would have them do is to create your vision for tomorrow, right? Create your vision for tomorrow. What is it that you really want to do? Where do you want to go? And then number 2, start leveraging Gen AI to help you paint that vision for tomorrow. I bring it to life. Okay,
and then I actually have a bonus question. Okay, what are two things that you absolutely love about sharks?
Oh, 2 things that I love about sharks. Number 1, sharks are big babies. Sharks are big babies, right? They are not as scary as the movies, make them to be. They're big babies. I've swum with sharks before, and they're just bumping into you. They're just like lazy big cats to the water. They don't care. They're not bothering you, right? So that's one thing that I love about them. They're just, and then the other thing, and the other thing that I love about sharks is that they are, they're powerful, right? So it's like two ends, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing. Like you've got this amazing, beautiful animal that is so powerful and so graceful, so strong, so fast. But yet at the same time, they're just doing their thing.
They're just big babies until they need it, and then they can use it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Please.
See, I knew it would be a good answer. Also, okay, so this was great. If people want to learn more about ManoByte and you, where should I send?
Yeah. ManoByte.com is where they can go to catch our website. And then you can go to my personal website, kjdean.com. And be glad to engage with you there and to help you to answer anything that you have and help you paint your vision.
Awesome. All right, Kevin, thank you so much for coming on. This was delightful.
We had a great time. Thanks for having me. Talk to you soon.
Absolutely. All right, that does it for today's episode. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And don't forget to join us next week when we tackle another great topic designed to help you elevate your product, your company, and your career.